Ich bin Jen von Ellie. Mehr sage ich nicht, weil ich habe ja nur 20 Sekunden. Wir fangen an. Also Ellie ist ein Startup, das hier in Berlin... why am I speaking in German? I should be speaking in English. Ally is a startup that has its seat here in Berlin. We're a mobility startup. We have a particular perspective on urban mobility. The status quo, so this is a fellow that I think in German circles is very well known to many of you. Can anyone tell me who it is? Michael Knight. This is Kit. Ah, it's so exciting. I was born in 1985, just as a reference point for this. That's the 80s. Today, the things that happen in that show are very realistic. So he spoke to his watch, and the watch sort of gave him feedback and helped him solve crime. The car came to him. Kit was very powerful, a very useful tool. We can see that happening as well in the very near future, and we already see it in test fields in many jurisdictions. So things that we used to think in the 80s weren't possible are very much possible today. We also see a lot of changes in urban mobility. So we see incumbents being challenged by things like, and companies like Uber, Drive Now, Car2Go. Urban mobility in cities is changing quite drastically. And when we look at the 80s and public transit, this is a bus from the 1980s, from the time of Knight Rider. This is a bus from today. It looks slightly different. It probably has Wi-Fi. It might have air conditioning, if you're lucky. And you can probably tap on and tap off. But generally, the system very much works the same. You go to the bus stop. The bus drives the same route. It picks up people that are waiting at that bus stop. And, I mean, generally, the system exists as though you might be able to find, the bus stop with the GPS. But you still go to the bus. The bus doesn't come to you. The bus drives the same time, the same route, even if it's full. So generally, it's a very traditional system as it was in the 80s. We see that a little bit differently. We see at Ally that you can use data and you can use analytics. You can use how people are using the system and analyze that information to design a system that's more aligned with what people are demanding. So a demand responsive system, as we call it, or an on-demand system. That has many benefits. It would reduce traffic. It would reduce emissions. I'm going way faster than 20 seconds per slide, by the way. It reduces the amount of space you need for parking. And we have at Ally what we call an ecosystem. The ecosystem is based on our app, which many of you may have. The app shows you all of your transportation options from A to B in a city. Behind that, we use your input there to kind of see how are you moving throughout the city. At 8 a.m., are you more likely to take a bus or public transit? If it's raining, like it just was, are you more likely to hop into an Uber or a taxi? Are you more likely to take a drive now if you're picking up your kids after work? And from that, we can design what we call mobility on demand. So the app acts as a sensor. We understand and apply that data to implement new mobility products. This is what the app looks like for those of you who haven't been to an app store recently. This is what the city dashboard would look like. This is the case of Hamburg. So you see here the subway and rail system in Hamburg and where the stops are for people who have to walk less than 15 minutes. That's what the highlight shows. This is an interesting use case. This is the taxi cab in Hamburg at a particular time of night. And I'm going to ask someone maybe to guess what happens at a particular time of night along this area, and guess where it is. It's the Reeperbahn, so a very popular area in the city at around, let's say, 3 in the morning. So a lot of taxi cabs going into the city, flowing into the downtown core there, or the core of that area. And what we saw afterwards, maybe you noticed, another hot spot sort of inflamed at one point. And that's the fish market. So at a certain point in your evening out, I've never done this, but apparently you go to the fish market, because who doesn't want to have a lot of drinks and then eat fish? So that's what happens in Hamburg, and you can pull from that, well, maybe the city can implement a shuttle service from the main train station to the Reeperbahn to spare people having to use a lot of taxis, or maybe at a certain time of night, you can bring people back and implement new mobility services. That's what we would call demand responsive transport. It essentially looks like this. You would use a mobility app like Ally to signal to a bus or to a driver, and likely a bus in our case, to pick you up from multiple locations. And the algorithm behind that searches out the most efficient system to pick those people up. A little bit us of a company. We're based here in Berlin, but we also have developers in Porto Alegre, Brazil. We are very much a leader in pushing forward the discussion on mobility in this space. So you see our founders here with various representatives from German government, and we see ourselves very much as a partner with public transportation agencies, traditional mobility providers, in helping to move the system in a way that's more responsive and flexible, and data-driven, of course. We're a very international team, as you can probably hear by my non-German accented English. And that's it. I think I was less than 6 minutes.